In the past 2 years, the United States has had over 1 million people die to the COVID pandemic. Just when we thought we were getting past it, the news has once again gotten around that the counties around Philadelphia are experiencing a high transmission rate, and stores and schools and churches are again encouraging people to mask up. Fortunately, with so many vaccinated and boosted, most are not experiencing the disease in a life-threatening way or requiring hospitalization as they were a couple of years ago, but still, nobody wants to get sick if they can avoid it. COVID has disrupted our communities in so many ways. It has torn the fabric of our society and our church community. And while we've struggled to keep the services going in one form or another, we have not been present for one another in the way that we would like to be or the way that we think of as being normal. We have not been able to be there just to talk or to be there with people during difficult times. People have been rightly cautious about gathering with others. We've not been able to grieve with those who grieve. We've not been able to bear one another's burdens when friends or loved ones have passed away. So this morning, we've set aside this time to remember our friends and dear ones who have passed away during these past 2 difficult years. Some have died with COVID, some did not. But this morning, we remember those who were in some way a part of this church community, a part of this faith family, who held a special place in our hearts. Joe Hoover. His family owned Hoover Lithograph in Philadelphia, and Joe joined the Army and went to Fort Dix and then moved out to Oklahoma with the artillery, which may explain his hard of hearing. Beth used to say he was as deaf as a post. And he really did have trouble, and it was probably related to these early years. Later on, he went on to play semi-pro soccer. He was quite an athlete. He met Beth at a dance at the what's the name of that boat down in Penn's Landing, the restaurant ship? There you go. And he met her there, and they were eventually married. He joined the family business. Eventually, times change, business changes, conditions change, and he ended up selling the business, but he was an avid outdoorsman. He joined a sports club in Tunkhannock and learned from the guys all the hottest places to go trout fishing. And once he had thoroughly mastered it, I guess he kind of lost interest and then went on to other things like playing golf with Paul McElwain. Beth says Joe is missed, especially this time of year because of his love of every kind of fishing. It kept him very much in touch with nature. He'd come home and tell us about the birds and the animals and the trees and the flower, and we were so glad that he passed on that knowledge. And so we begin by remembering our friend, Joe Hoover. Don Baker. Don is remembered by his family as having been a hard worker, an energetic go-getter. In the summer, when he was off from school, he used to join his friends to work in New Jersey, out on the farms. He was a graduate of Girard College and the Wharton School of Business. And then he went on to work for SmithKline and specialized in debugging the production process. He also worked with a Canadian company designing kitchens and bathrooms on his home computer. He loved sports. He followed the Eagles faithfully. He would, Carol tells me how he used to set up giant spreadsheets to follow the football draft. He loved watching the classic old movies, and he loved music, including jazz and opera, and big band. He used to travel with Carol, and Carol remembers attending a jazz fest in New Orleans with him. She remembers walking the seashore, and they would talk and talk and talk about anything and everything. So Don, today we remember you. We say goodbye.
Bobby Mosteller was a longtime member of this church. She was a local girl. She graduated from Two Different High School and Bryn Mawr Hospital School of Nursing. She served as a short-term volunteer at a Navy hospital in Virginia toward the end of World War II. Apparently, she hopped a Navy bus to get down to the hospital, and she later worked in maternity wards. She and her husband, Bill, who were married for 68 years, were very active, longtime members of this church. Apparently, Bobby quipped after having her own children, when their birthdays come around, I'm the one that will be getting the gifts. My memory of Bobby is that sense of humor, that quick sense of humor, and her warmth. When I first started coming to this church, there were several sort of older women in the church that really were warm and welcoming, and she was certainly one of them. I'm also fortunate that each of my children were gifted one of her craft items. She was very crafty, and she made Christmas ornaments and painted little ceramics and that type of thing, and each of my children was given something that she had made. So today we warmly remember and honor Bobby Mosteller.
John Steele died Sunday, August 8, 2020. He was the husband of Joan Steele, with whom he shared 61 years of marriage. John was a graduate of Radnor High School. He served in the United States Navy during the Korean War. John held several jobs in sales throughout his lifetime, and also served as township supervisor of Perkiomen Township. He was also a member of the VFW American Legion, and he was a long-term member of the Baptist Church in the Great Valley. In addition to his wife Joan, John is survived by his daughter Elizabeth, 4 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren.
Dr. Charles Hollenbach was 89 when he passed away September 16th, 2020. He was a 1948 graduate of Media High School and later received a degree as Doctor of Podiatric Medicine from Temple University. He served in the U.S. Army during the Korean conflict. He was also very active in many organizations during his life. He was a volunteer docent in Independence National Historical Park for 25 years. Dr. Hollenbach was a member of Penn Lodge number 709, F and AM, a life member of AMVETS, and an honorary member of the Historic Carpenters Company of the City and County of Philadelphia. He was a past president of the Keystone Podiatry Society of Pennsylvania and a former board member of the Child Health Centers of Chester and vicinity and the Chester Human Relations Commission. He is survived by his wife of 65 years, Shirley, a daughter, Deborah, granddaughters, Lauren and Pamela, and 3 great-grandchildren, Bryce, Morgan, and Julie.
Donald Carl, or Don as many knew him, was 102 years young when he passed away peacefully in October 2020. That may be a longevity record among BCGV members. Mr. Carl was a gentle man, but in many ways he was a gentle giant who did so much for our church. He and his wife, Grace, were married for over 60 years and were members here for over 50 years. They lived on Coldstream Drive, right down here, for many, many years, and then decided that they would give up their house and move to Shenandoah. Unfortunately, Grace did not live to make that move. But Mr. Carl did, and he continued to do one of the things that he loved very much, and that was golf. He continued to golf almost until his passing. But what I remember most is that he was a kind gentleman who always had a good word to say. There is a balm in Gilead just seems to fit when I think back and I remember Don.
Marge Hunt and her husband Fred were other longtime members of the church that I remember fondly from my early days attending in the late 90s. Marge was born in Massachusetts and loved dance as a child, so much so that by the time she was 17, she was a dance instructor herself. She met Fred because they were sort of traveling with the same group of friends, and they married and lived in Massachusetts and then Rhode Island before moving down here to the Devon and Stratford areas where they raised 2 sons. Apparently, she and Fred enjoyed together the hobby of woodworking, and she was proud of her ability to recane furniture that Fred had refinished. And she also helped Fred manage his diabetes for many years and was proud of the way that she was able to keep him healthy during that time. I remember Marge as another one of the warm, welcoming members of this church. And one of my fondest memories is the first time I brought my son John, who's now 19, to church. At the time, my regular pew was right behind the Hunt's regular pew. And I brought John in my car seat, and I was nervous, and I thought, what are people going to do if he cries? And she saw him, and she turned around, and she said, take him out of his car seat. He'll be more comfortable that way. And my concern just melted away, and I knew I was in a warm and caring environment. So today we fondly remember Marge Hunt.
David Rahm was the brother of Debbie Tate and father of Karen and Kelly Rahm Snyder. He died peacefully at his home in Ocean City, Maryland, with his family by his side just a couple of weeks ago. He was a graduate of the Valley Forge Military Academy, spent 4 years in the U.S. Navy, where he specialized in interpreting photo reconnaissance. And then after his honorable discharge, he joined the Tredyffrin Police Department, where he took his place as part of that thin blue line that serves as a dike to hold back the forces of crime and chaos in our community. The work was physical, it was mental, it was emotionally tough, and you just never knew what kind of emergency the shift might bring. And yet he is remembered by those who knew him as being particularly kind and considerate. He worked as a patrolman, a juvenile officer, a detective. And then following his retirement, he was just an avid hunter and fisherman. He used to enjoy taking the family up to the cabin in Clinton County and taking the girls fishing. A voracious reader. He enjoyed boating and watching NASCAR, and took up building fishing rods as a hobby. And so, David, we say goodbye to you today. We have remembered 8 that we knew collectively, but surely there are many others. There are friends and family and neighbors and people you knew from work who have also succumbed in the past 2 years. And so I would invite you, as we light this candle is dedicated to the remembrance of your friends. And I would invite you just to say their name out loud. Richard Sandler. Any others?